I'm also involved in organizing the Howard Zinn Memorial Lecture Series here at Occupy Boston, and we actually have a couple of socialist and speakers coming this weekend, including Fred Magdoff, who's giving a talk. He's with Monthly Review, talking about what every environmentalist needs to know about capitalism, which is basically about how the notion of green capitalism is a total contradiction in terms, and such speeches as that. So I have a couple flyers here. I would love to make people available, make them available to people, and also because this is a place where we're trying to cultivate discussion. I mean, I think one thing that's important here is that this is happening at all, right? And so I'm going to shut up and let it happen. But that's some of the things I have to say. So.
Anyone else want to jump on stack?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Go on stack. Somebody get on stack.
I know a lot about this, but what he spoke about communities getting involved, I think that's huge. I mean, those of us who aren't from the city, I'm from a small town in New Hampshire, and a lot of people can't really connect with this itself, but if you spread a message of like, hey, you know what, you need to take care of your neighbor's house is getting foreclosed, that's what we need to be spreading, is the message of just standing up for each other and helping each other. I think it gets a little complicated for some people who aren't involved in this big movement, so maybe like breaking it down really simple, I think it brings a lot of people in. Yeah, but I'm really happy you guys are all here.
No one has got it? Go ahead, Sam. I'm not on staff.
I just want to say a couple things. One of them is about public opinion, the way in which what am I going to speak in this? All right. The way in which we've become aware that we've become more popular, say, than the Tea Party and Obama right now. And I think we really have to be skeptical about that. Public opinion sways very quickly. We should not fall in love with public opinion. Like, we know the fact that politicians build themselves around a kind of PR campaign. And I think we should not do that. We're not here to sort of conceive ourselves through the reflection of the way in which we're represented through media and through others. It's true that we're more popular, but that's only because we're speaking the truth right now. Second of all, I want to say about demands. Demands and concrete demands are absolutely essential, and I agree with everything that's been said here about demands. And we need to have concrete demands in real ways, but we should not fall in love with concrete demands either. What we're doing here is not talking to people in power and demanding them to carry out their power in different ways. We're actually reconceiving the definition of power. We're reconceiving ourselves through what we're doing here. We're here experimenting in ways to relate to one another that have not been allowed by the system which is in place. And we need to allow that experimentation to express itself in ways we don't really understand at this moment. So demands are crucial, but experimentation is just as important.
Let's give him a hand. Give him a hand for that one. Give him a hand for
Sir, would you like to?
Sir, did you want to?
No.
All right, who's next?
All right, everyone else has a chance to speak.
You guys know it's GA tonight, 7 o'clock. Want everybody to be there. Very powerful GA.
Emily, all right. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Rizzy.
Okay. I'd just like to say, does anyone have our demands on us? No?
I can recite them. So come to GA tonight, 7 o'clock.
I'd just like to say something.
All there. Have new safety committee.
I'd just like to say something about demands in general. The demands of Socialist Alternative. Okay, I'll just yell loud.
Yeah.
The demands SA put forward were primarily defensive in nature. That is to say, there are attacks coming down on the living standards of working people right now. Attacks on Social Security, Medicare, healthcare, Medicaid, just any standard of living that they might enjoy. If we want to draw people out, we have to at least make demands that are at least defensive in nature in protecting the living standards that they have. We can talk in the future about maybe more aggressive demands that make real gains, but right now we got to hold the tide back, and this is a good way of doing it. There are people who are against demands altogether. I think this is bad for the movement. Like Ryan made the point, like it makes it very easy for the Democrats who don't stand for anything except for, corporate power, but hidden with rhetoric that they try and change from the GOP, which is actually the same policy when it comes down to it. it's very easy for them to put themselves at the head of this and sort of claim ownership of it, like Elizabeth Warren did the other day, who absolutely does not represent anything here, and as Barack Obama and other Democrats have tried to do. We really need to make it impossible for them to put themselves in the same camp as us in the media. Right now, if you go in the news, you don't hear anything about politics at this in the media about this. You hear about violence, you hear about drugs, you hear about the personal conflicts that occur in these tight living quarters. We need to change the dynamic of the way the discussion's happening by putting forward real demands and making it impossible for the politicians who don't represent us but represent the 1% to pretend and act like our false friends and try and smother this movement slowly over time. The best way to do that is demand and concrete action, radical action, like the ones that we were putting forward in the lead-off tonight. Thank you.
Here, here.
Emily next. Anyone else would like a chance to speak?
What about having more big weekend demonstrations like they did in the 60s, where they get all the students from all over the city in the City Hall Plaza and places like that?
That'd be great.
Isn't there a walkout plan?
Yeah, we've been doing stuff like that on the weekends.
Yeah. Is there a more
So
what I really want to speak to is the neighborhood committee idea. I think this is a really meaningful way that we can get the people who have kids, who have jobs, who have homes, and they can't come out and camp out here, and maybe can't come out for a 3-hour GA to listen to us talk about our laundry. So I want to let everybody know that in JP we're starting a neighborhood committee. This is a concrete action that's happening. We're going to get people together, and we're going to sit in a room, not wander around a camp. We're going to talk about how do we move forward politically? And we want to encourage this model in every neighborhood. If you think you can get together 5, 10 people in your neighborhood, then start one. Let's start having these dialogues. That's the importance of this movement, is that these conversations are happening. Yes, experimentation is wonderful. Let's talk about what sort of proposals can change what's going on. Concrete proposals, not just standing against corporate greed, which I'm totally against, but that's not really something you can act upon, right? So I just wanted to reiterate again, we're starting a JP council. If you live in JP, approach me. If you don't live in JP, think about starting one in your own neighborhood. And these are ways we can foster discussion with people who can't come out here. If you live in New Hampshire, if you live in Rhode Island, if you live in Newton.
Well, I live in Newton, and I have written a bunch of times to ask if there's anyone in Newton who could actually, because it's hard as hell to get here. Right.
Emily's got the floor.
No, I'm just point of whatever it is.
You done? Go ahead. Good. All right. Would anyone else like a chance to speak?
I just have a question. Is the sign-up sheet going around? The sign-up sheet.
I think it's just going around. Yeah.
Back to my old one.
Start marching on Walmart.
Where's the list?
Right?
Yeah, I love the idea of the neighborhood committees. Something we've been trying to bring up for a while, because I don't think we are going to be able to last through the winter here. Even if people decide they do want to last through the winter, the co-ops they have a kind of a reason to bust it up as the numbers get smaller, and they have a kind of a valid justification. It's in the interest of public safety, whatever. It's going to be kind of hard to camp out here with this 3 feet of snow on the ground. So we need to have a plan on what we're going to be doing over the winter.
Like the weekend demonstrations would be the thing. Is it breakdown?
Right. Well, as far as demonstrations go, I continue to have any of the demonstrations that we can put together over the winter. But I'd love to come back in the spring, maybe the last week of March or something. Build for the whole winter. Come back with a poor people's march. Who can't get in on a poor people's march? I'm poor. I know you're poor. We're all poor. And there's a lot of poor people over there, and poor people over there, and poor people over there. Let's get them all out on the friggin' streets. Come back with the kind of action, you know. Appeal to people, say, you know, just come out for one day. Really promote the hell out of it. And people come out and they look around, they're like, wow, we can have power. We can change things. But yeah, that's another thing I think we could be building for over the winter, along with the neighborhood committees, where it's going to be like Emily was saying. We sit down on a table and we don't do anything but have these political conversations. There's nowhere to go. You sit your butt in the chair and let's have these discussions. Maybe have, in addition to the neighborhood committees, have a centralized committee where delegates are sent from each of the neighborhood committees, or even have once that is organized, maybe have more specialized committees. Even it's all going to be like something that's worked out as we go, but just some things to start thinking about.
What about a million people march on Washington on the mall?
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else like to speak? Anybody like to speak?
I like to raise something that's been argued for already, but actually to hear what people's who may be who have questions about the idea, what people's resistance or thoughts are. Like, what do people think about the idea of Occupy Boston taking up demands? I've been working on a unity statement with some folks, which isn't necessarily a statement of demand. So I've been thinking about the whole question of how to kind of crystallize in language what this movement's about at this point. That's not the only way we can crystallize that, but it's one way. But I mean, I want to know, basically I wanted to ask, is there anybody who doesn't think, for instance, for the sake of discussion, and clarify that Occupy Boston should in fact take up a particular demands at this point, and if so, what are people's concerns? I wouldn't want to assume we're united on that, although Brian makes a strong case, right? But I'd like to hear, are there people who believe or who have questions about that? And if they do, what are the questions?
Sure. Anyone like to speak to that? Raise your hand.
I'll speak to that.
Go ahead.
I think two things need to be said, which is, right now we currently have a system, and in that system, they are not really able to articulate the problem. They say that they can, but they can't. And now they have all the demands that they want from the system. They want to give our money to the banks. They want to give our money to industries and then give it back to the private sector. They want to do this and they want to do that. If we do not have our grievances, then we might be taking that approach. I'm not saying we are. That's something we would need to think about. Maybe we can make demands without crystallizing our grievances. However, I think it's also worth exploring the idea that it's worth crystallizing our grievances with the system and giving the voices before we make demands as well. So that's something I think we should all put a little time into before we, start to make concrete demands that actually work inside the system quite aptly. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stack's right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to monopolize.
I've been in SNCC, I've been in SDS, I've been in all those movements for years. Okay, and one of the things I know is that one of the dangers is that when demands are made, which I'm for, I agree. But it's being inchoate for a long time was good to get a critical mass of people. But once demands start getting made, I tell you, if there's one reformer left in the world, they'd split in half. You're going to get people saying, no, we don't like that, we don't like this, we don't like that, and you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. See, that's could I speak to this? I mean, I raised the question. I mean, I think that's one of the concerns about demands is that you might in fact fracture or prevent the growth or the attraction of people who feel like they need to sign off on 10 things in advance, even though I think that we should be building this movement into an anti-war and anti-imperialist movement. I think I want to encourage it to become an anti-capitalist movement, and not just an anti-1% movement either, right? Because it's important to keep in mind the main reason the 1% or the owning class needs to exploit and needs to act as if they're greedy, even if they're loving in their hearts, is because if they don't fucking outcompete their competitors, right, they fall by the wayside as well, right? We're talking about a system not only of accumulation, which is to say, extraction of wealth from labor and resources, but a system of competition. Also a system of anarchy. It's literally a system of endless accumulation, meaning and without limit and without goal. We have a system that has a virus for a brain. Right? I mean, viruses for a brain, you know what I mean? and we are their hosts. We are their hosts. You know what I mean? And so I mean I think that's a kind of an aside point. But the point I want to make about demands is that I think it's possible. I think we should be very strategic about our demands, not see them as, and think about them kind of mechanically as what just by definition a movement needs to move forward. I think we need to think very concretely, and this is also true about the unity statement I've been working on, rhetorically, like what do we seek to accomplish? What do we think? Who's the audience we're trying to reach? And that's why I'm in favor, again, to accentuate the idea of maybe picking one clear demand we think we can actually get through to GA on Sunday or this week. I think Sunday's probably, Saturday's going to be a washout, a snow out. The weekday GAs don't seem to be as well attended. I don't know. I mean, maybe people who live here can correct me on that, but that's my impression. And so maybe we can be a little more tactical there. But I also think it's possible and maybe desirable to have some sort of unity statement that articulates grievances, because I feel like at this point, the way things are, if we think of a statement as something, it's not just for us, but that goes out into the world to try to get people who are a little bit like sympathetic or curious but not really sure what we're about, I think we can probably win a lot of people by putting in clear terms what we're against, and what our values are and why we're against it. And then in a kind of open, and then say, we welcome you to discuss with us your ideas and ours about how to change the situation. You know what I mean? So there's a way in which you can have clarity about and move the discussion about what needs to be done forward, while still welcoming people into the dialogue, which I think is one of the positives about the Occupy Boston space right now. Another thing to just throw out is that I think we should think, in addition to thinking about winterization, we should also maybe think about places we can occupy this winter, where we can stay warm. So I have like 10 or 12 copies of this draft